Welcome back to Comicstorian Gaming, where we cover some of the lore to your favorite video games and show you videos of me being an idiot. Today we're going to continue our Destiny coverage with the lore behind the Hive. Whispers of fear can be heard whenever the race of being known as the Hive are mentioned. Though they mass, they are less an army and more of a primal force of destruction. Followers of the sword logic, their origins are ancient as they were born in a world known as the Fundament, a gas giant in a star system far away, 1 billion years ago. The name they had before being known as the Hive has long since been lost. The people crashed onto the gas giant, believing to be fleeing from something in the universe, and on this world, thousands of different species lived. The traveler was not unknown to them, as it was aiding a species known as the Ammonites on a nearby moon. As the people began to build a new life for themselves on the Fundament, they discovered that the world was harsh and hostile. Their lives were short and full of despair. So time passed, and the ruler of the Osmium continent was known as the Osmium King. One day, the king discovered an ancient worm that had washed onto the shores of his kingdom. He believed the creature to be dead, and he took it home as a display. Yet one of his 3 daughters could hear the worm whispering to her. It was telling her its dark secrets. Time continued, and the king grew mad as he obsessed over an event where the moons of the Fundament would align and create a tidal wave that would destroy the civilizations of their world. Yet he need not worry, for the king was killed when he was betrayed by the gods of the Helium court. Yet the king's 3 daughters, Shiro, Sathona, and Arash, all escaped the slaughter, and they vowed vengeance upon the Helium kingdom. Eventually, the 3 sisters discovered an ancient ship, whose technology far outclassed anything that they had known. They began to repair that ship, learning that it was intended to be used to travel to the planet's core. They believed that they could learn of a way to stop the end of the world, and the 3 sisters activated the ship and they began to travel. As they pushed through the gaseous sea, they met a creature known as the Leviathan. The massive creature had followed the traveler and warned the sisters to stop their descent. The deep of the ocean led only to darkness. Yet, Sathona's worm continued to whisper to her, urging the sisters to dive deeper. In the dark depths of the Fundament, the sisters encountered the ancient worm gods. These beings spoke to them, telling the sisters that they had been trapped in the depths of the Fundament for 1 million years, and they were kept there by the traveler's light. They offered the sisters a deal: immortality in exchange for being the hosts of the great worm's larvae. The worms warned them. The larvae could sense each sister's nature. They began to change, and the larvae would destroy them. They also warned that as the sisters grew stronger, so too would the worm's hunger. But the sisters agreed, each taking a larvae into their bodies. Shiro became known as Shivu Arath, the knight. Zathona became known as Savathun, the mother. And Arash became known as Oryx, the king of the Hive. The 3 returned to their people, avenging their father and spreading the larvae of the worms amongst their people. They created the Hive. The Hive spread through the Fundament, destroying the people, and they began to create ships spreading out into the universe, wiping out all of those that they came across. And as they spread outward, Oryx began to negotiate with the species that they found. But Savathun was commanded by the worms to kill the king. Oryx did not die though, passing instead into the Ascendant realm where they were reincarnated. Oryx was reborn, but now all empathy was purged from his being and he became a tyrant, wiping out the other races and forcing the traveler to leave. As the Hive began to spread through the universe, wiping out those that were unfortunate enough to get in their way, the 3 rulers discovered that the larvae were growing more powerful and hungrier than they could possibly feed them. The 3 rulers traveled to their throne worlds, created in the Ascendant realm, where they discussed how to save themselves, when finally both Savathun and Shivu Arath offered their lives and power to Oryx, so that he would become strong enough to save them. He killed them, absorbing their power, and confronted Akka, the Worm of Secrets. In the battle, Oryx slayed the Great Worm, using its ability to call the deep to create tablets of ruin. With this, Oryx was transformed into the being Oryx. The previous one was spelled A-U-R-Y-X, while this one is spelled O-R-Y-X. That's the difference. And he declared himself the Taken King. Oryx continued his war against the light as they continued across the galaxy. Eventually, both Shivu Arath and Savathun would be revived, and Oryx would create the system of the Hive that would perpetually feed the worms, allowing them to live forever. Oryx would then spawn children. the god king known as Crota, and the Death Singer twins, Uruanak and Uruhalak. Oryx left his spawn to go and study the deep, but Crota was tricked by Savathûn, opening up a portal that allowed the Vex to enter the Hive's inner circle. 100 years passed as the spawn of Oryx waged their war with the Vex. Oryx was finally called back, returning to cleanse his throne. Anger filled Oryx for his son's mistake, and he was cast out, ordered to be victorious or die, so Crota would become victorious, gaining godhood from the deep. The Hive would continue its sweep across the universe, pursuing the Traveler into the Sol system, where their forces hollowed out the moon. And within the crust, the Hive forces gathered strength and passed into myth and legend. After the collapse, it was the Guardian, Razil Azir, the first that reached the moon. Myth spoke of an ancient evil that lived within, and Azir first encountered Zora the Betrothed and her knight. The Guardian defeated the warrior and the witch, returning to the earth to warn of the Hive. Now awakened, the Hive launched its assault on the earth. Many Guardians fell in the first assault, forcing the Vanguard to declare the moon off limits to all but the most powerful of forces. And that is the origins of the Hive, even if I probably butchered a bunch of those names. I hope you guys enjoyed this as we continue bringing you Destiny lore on a Friday basis. We're trying to get one out every Friday. Don't forget, if you missed our other videos, we're trying to give you short, condensed versions of the lore. I feel like plenty of other channels give you the full theories and massive explanations that we can sit there for hours watching, but sometimes you just want a quick explanation. We're trying to fill that need. If you appreciate what we're doing here, consider giving the channel a sub or giving this video a like. Either of those would be great and we'd appreciate it. Otherwise, thank you for just watching and taking the time to listen to me here at the ending, and I'll see you next week right here.